Mud racer, again relying on mountain-motored Chevrolet power. Almost 600 cubic inches of supercharged, fuel-injected, methanol-burning Chevy in this almost sprint car-appearing vehicle. It was 1 year ago that Larry Jarrett set the course record here at the Oklahoma State Fairgrounds at 2.06 seconds. If anybody is going to knock Tom Mintz out of the #1 spot, it's going to be Jarrett. But keep in mind that with the ruts forming almost 3/4 of the way through this 100-foot-long pit, Jarrett is going to have to do some driving. He's got to keep away from the ruts that are sending every other competitor over to the outer side boundary of this track if he expects to stay competitive. Again, remember these cars must use Department of Transportation approved street legal tires, although they can alter the tread in any way, shape, or form they desire. Jarrett, a beautiful launch, but that was something that was not really caused by the racing surface itself, as Jarrett for some reason gets out of the throttle halfway down. Could it be that he was so worried about the machine heading for the outer boundary that he shut the throttle down in anticipation of the machine getting sideways? We'll have to look on the slow motion replay. 2.57 seconds, the front end up. It never appears to head that far over to the side. It looks like Jarrett was more concerned about the sloppy shutdown area and stopping in time before going out of bounds. At 2.57 seconds, it'll only be good enough for the #3 spot for the defending champion. But don't go away. The battle will continue in Oklahoma City when we return in a moment. Lines it up on a very tricky starting line surface. The McNasty entry at an idle. Stages up. The mark to beat, 2.44 seconds by Tom Mintz and the Shake Me Ford Coupe. Problems off the starting line for Hill. He gets into the throttle on what appeared to be a strong top-end charge, but you could hear the motor bog as soon as he hit the throttle, and that may have cost him a shot at the #1 spot. Hansen takes the goggles off. He knows that he had problems. Obviously, he is not overly thrilled with his attempt at shooting for the #1 position, but at 2.85 seconds, he definitely had the top end that he needed to get around the #1 holder. Leaving the starting line, there you see the front end take a nosedive. That's where the motor bogged. As soon as Hansen got back on the throttle, it was a nearly picture-perfect run, but at 2.85 seconds, not enough to overtake the lead. Shelley Herman is in the pits right now with one of the most influential fathers in mud racing.
And what does your daddy do for a living?
My dad works in the office. He's a fireman.
He's a teacher.
He plays with me.
And what does your daddy do for a living?
He builds mud bogs.
He sure does. His name is Jim Harris, and he is the technical director, and he is a man who knows his mud. Now, Jim, let's say I wanted to have a few close personal friends over, and we wanted to build a mud bog. What would we have to do?
You'd have to go out and dig a hole in the ground and bring up 350 yards of dirt, lay it out 150 feet long, 30 feet wide, and about 4 feet deep.
Now, I live in Los Angeles, and there's not that much dirt in the whole city. What do you do when you can't find dirt?
Well, we have that problem in New York City, the concrete jungle. The Madison Square Garden is in the middle of downtown New York, and we have to bring dirt from about 30 miles out and take it 5 floors up.
Is that a little expensive?
Oh, yeah, it can exceed $45,000 to bring in one track.
Now, is there a difference between the type of track that you could build out of New Jersey dirt versus what you find here in Oklahoma?
Oh, yeah, New Jersey dirt. You find some good hard clay in New Jersey. In Oklahoma City, they have a lot of rodeos, and the dirt happens to be very highly fertilized.
I see. Do the fans ever get involved with any activities in the mud?
Oh, yeah, we do promotions quite often in most of the cities that we go into. Where we bring them down, we do a dash for cash through the mud, and they get in, and it takes a few minutes to pull them out.
Jim, it's obvious that you're a family man. Now, what do you do when you come home from work and you're just covered with mud?
She doesn't let me anywhere near the door. She routes me around back, pulls out the hose, hoses me down, makes sure it's all thin, lets me in the house.
Incredible man, responsible for building over 90 mud tracks throughout the average USHRA Association season. Here's Linus Smith with, of all things, a 1951 Willys pickup. The original Jeep leaves the starting line, but boy, with nowhere near enough tire speed it'll take to get through this pit. You can see just how unbelievably slippery that pit is becoming as Linus Smart stays in the throttle until the officials throw the red flag, signifying the end of the run. The Grape Ape fuel-injected Chevy-powered Willys will not be a serious contender for this battle. But Linus Smith is starting to get a feel of just how tough this mud pit is here at the Oklahoma City State Arena. He's still thrilled. Looking at the replay, you can see that Linus left the starting line with almost a dead idle, and indeed that was nowhere near as much power as he needed to get through this pit. About 40 feet down track, the machine finally digs in, and throwing rooster tails of mud off the four-wheel drive, the Grape Ape slowly sinks into the mud pit here at the State Fairgrounds Arena. Not nearly good enough for the #1 spot, but we've still got an awful lot of machines trying to overtake Tom Mintz and the Shake Me Ford, ready for competition. With rooster tails sailing into the air, Linus Smart sees his last inch of forward movement, and the red flag comes up. That's the name of the game in U.S. Hot Rod Association Championship Mud Racing. You always stay in the throttle until the machine just can't go any further, and the measurement is taken from there. Yet another one of the supercharged entries, Jim Tollison in the Sandpacker, a fuel-injected, supercharged, methanol-burning, Chevy-powered lightweight roadster that indeed has always been one of the toughest in the Southwest Conference of U.S. Hot Rod Association National Event Competition in one of his first national event appearances of the year. Tollison leaves the starting line very nicely, but apparently shuts it down before the finish line, as he too was more concerned with stopping this machine at the very, very slippery shutdown area. Tollison knew that he had to get on the throttle, stay on it as long as he dared, and then shut it down in hopes of staying within the shutdown boundaries. But Tollison will not be a threat, shutting off 3/4 the way down the track. And right now it looks like Tom Mintz and the Shake Me machine is exhibiting more guts than anything else in holding that #1's position. At 3.22 seconds, you can see Tollison stay in the throttle after a very, very nice starting line launch. The front end comes up out of the pit, but he shuts it down about 25 feet before the finish line marker, and that will only be good enough for one of the top 6 positions at this point. Tollison, on his way to a 2-second run, just couldn't stay in the throttle any longer. As Tollison drives it up and out of the pit, he too is now well aware that a 2.44-second run through this pit is mighty impressive. We've still got more championship mud racing action coming up, though, shooting for that #1 spot when we return to Oklahoma City in just a moment. U.S. Hot Rod Association Championship Super Modified Mud Racing action in Oklahoma City with Jackie Hunter and the Spare Parts Jeep, an amazing vehicle that has always proven to be very competitive year in and year out here at the Oklahoma City Championships. It's a stock wheelbase, stock appearing Jeep CJ7 Renegade with real live AMC Jeep power. Only 340 cubic inches worth with one 4-barrel carburetor. An amazing piece of equipment with some of the largest tires in super modified racing still remaining under that 44-inch tall limit. And by the way, these tires are still stock configuration as they would be run on the street. The Spare Parts entry leaves the starting line very, very nicely, and with Jeep power, even though he gets out of the throttle just before the finish line, this ride has just beaten some of the supercharged lightweight entries here at Oklahoma City. A great, great run for the Spare Parts AMC-powered Renegade. In fact, it'll be real interesting to see where this elapsed time places him in the final field. Look at the starting line launch. Nearly perfect, even though the machine noses under in the first 10 feet. He brings it right back up, and at 3.27 seconds, that'll be good for one of the top 6 positions with a virtually stock Jeep Renegade. A tremendous run for a competitor that normally would have been overshadowed by the 2,000 horsepower supercharged entries, and a look of determination indicates I think he knew that he was capable of doing it. What a ride. But I'll tell you what, this vehicle happens to be, at this point, one of the quick